My BCM Mark 18 inspired clone is a gun I haven't really featured too much on this channel before. Not really for any reason, but I think I've come to the point in my shooting journey where I'll just focus on a couple rifles at a time instead of kind of spreading myself thin on all of them. So now that I've had some trigger time behind my M4, I wanted to switch to use this Mark 18 clone a little more, go for something a little shorter, a little lighter just a bit, and just kind of switch it up a bit. So with that in mind, nothing against my M4, I will absolutely still be showing that on the channel a lot, but I wanted to introduce you guys, if you will, to my Mark 18 inspired clone instead. And so this won't really be a review as much of me just kind of sharing like parts list, why I chose this gun and just some background and stuff like that. So hope you guys enjoy. So I built this gun in around 2021 or so, and it was the first gun that I truly actually assembled on my own. So when I built the M16A4, the upper receiver is already just, a complete upper, and it was only the lower that I changed. But even then, it was only like a couple parts here and there. And so I think after the M16, I then wanted, more of a challenge and to be more connected to my gun. And so the next one was this Mark 18 inspired clone, where I truly took all the parts that were, sourced from, anywhere on the internet, and actually put it together all on my own, which was a challenge, but also really, really fun. And so that always kind of made this gun special to me. Now, when I did finish building it, I only put about a couple hundred rounds through it, and then I kind of stopped and went back to my M4. I don't really know why I did that. I guess I just gravitated more towards, the larger firearms. But I truly liked the Mark 18. I wasn't disappointed at the final product. I think I just came to a point in my shooting journey where I like to focus on just a couple guns at a time, as opposed to, shooting like 3, 4, 5 and really not kind of making any kind of skill gains on any one of them. So I think that's why the Mark 18 kind of was sitting in the safe for a bit. But that's going to change. So now that we've talked about the background, let's get into the parts list itself, the fun, juicy stuff. So starting at the front towards the muzzle, we have just a regular A2 birdcage flash hider. Nothing crazy, nothing too special. I would eventually like to have some kind of muzzle device that accepts a suppressor, but that's, a story for another time. And then afterwards, we do have the Surefire 640U, which I understand I have the little crappy little, ties here. I have since switched to zip ties, which you will see later in the video because I filmed them at different times. But I know I'm going to get a lot of crap about this, but I've since switched to something better. I'll just put that out there. I put the flashlight on here first to kind of round out the look, but also because, if I use this gun for home defense, I need to be able to see what I can shoot, and obviously having a flashlight definitely helps with that. And all of this, of course, is sitting on the Daniel Defense RIS2 rail. Now you'll notice that I have the Aimpoint Comp M4S on here, which I did not just buy a new one. I just took this one from my M4A1 clone because they're just too expensive to have two of them. And so again, good learning curve. It's an optic that I really love. I've come to find that while I like EOTechs, which I know are very popular in Mark 18s, I just find the simplicity of this M4S, this Aimpoint, to just be exactly what I need. That, and of course everyone knows about the battery life about Aimpoints. They can always be left on for I think this one is 80,000 hours, and so it can be, and it's a constant on as well, whereas the EOTech doesn't really have those features. Still an excellent optic. There's a reason they're so popular, but for my personal preferences, I just prefer to have the Aimpoint. The reason I went for the S version of the Comp M4 is because the battery compartment is lower. So first, I think it looks sick, but more importantly, more practically too, I felt that on my Aimpoint Pro, which has the same battery compartment location as the regular M4 at the 2 o'clock position, it does kind of obscure your field of view just like a little bit. And so I wanted to get the S version instead. My sight picture is nice and clean. I can see everything I want that I'm aiming at, so that's why I got it. So I threw in some B-roll of some of these different important parts, but I also wanted to do more of an overhead view again, like some of my other videos, just so you can get more of an in-depth, up-close look at what these parts are. So we'll start with the upper receiver first, where all the action happens, and then we'll move to the lower. So no gun review will be complete without the bulk carrier group being discussed. So here we have the Toolcraft bulk carrier group. This is a phosphate coated one. And again, with only 500 rounds, there's really not that much wear to show. And so this is just your run-of-the-mill, ordinary Toolcraft bulk carrier group, and it's worked well so far. No complaints. I also have the PRI gas buster. I think this is the M84, whichever one is the military big latch. I went for that, again, for the look. I know all about the look, right? But also because, the latch on the side is much larger. I do find that it does make a big difference in the regular A2 charging handle. Is it necessary? No. Is it really cool, and does it still give some added benefit? Yes. And just for the upper receiver itself, again, this is a stripped BCM upper, and the finish is a lot flatter, otherwise it's the only kind of really thing I've noticed from like my Daniel defense, which has a little more of a sheen to it. But otherwise, it's your very like standard upper receiver. One thing I will say is that BCM does that thermal fit thing where the actual, the area where the barrel mates into the upper is really freaking tight. So you do have to take a heat gun or something to it, or at least that's what I found worked for me. And then, when you have the barrel mated, you might have to give it a little bit of love taps as well with a rubber mallet or something to make sure it fits. That was definitely a challenge for my first time assembling, an AR-15, but it was great. It makes the gun that much more rewarding when I finally see it completed. And there is 2 rail key where it's pretty easy to put on. Hardest part was just making sure you applied the proper amount of torque on the barrel nut, which really was not that difficult at all. And so once the barrel nut, is mated onto the upper receiver of the barrel, all you have to do is just tighten some screws so there is to, and then you're good to go. So it was really pretty straightforward. And as for the lower receiver, as I mentioned before, it was actually a stripped BCM lower, which was pretty hard to find at the time, and I think it still is. But, it's no different from any kind of other receiver. I paid for the roll mark, to be honest. Full disclosure there. But you can see the roll mark is slightly more minimalist. That was just an aesthetic choice. It doesn't, help me be any better at shooting. And then the internals are just a regular A2 lower parts kit, and that was from Aero Precision. But the buttstock is from B5 Systems. It's the SOPMOD in Coyote tan. So as you can tell, there aren't really any kind of like super killer parts in here or anything. I didn't go for the newest stuff like Geisley or, any of those other kind of really like hot modern ones. They're excellent. I'm great. I'm sure they're awesome. I just wanted something that fit kind of my my needs, my wants and stuff like that. And this is like the era of gun that I tend to like. And so, I just kind of went for it. Again, only 500 rounds. I think this is the 3rd or 4th time I've said that. But so far, it's been a real pleasure to shoot. 5.56 already doesn't have much recoil anyway. But, I was originally thinking, how much, more noticeable would it be from my M4, which is the 14.5 inch barrel. And it's really nothing. I felt there's basically there's very little, if any, learning curve really to this gun. And so it's been great. It's been a very seamless transition from my M4 to this Mark 18. So I wanted to talk a little bit also about why I'm choosing to shoot the Mark 18 now. What's kind of the thought process there. And so we talked about how I was kind of neglecting this gun originally, and so now it's time to bring it out of the safe. But from the more practical side of things, obviously the biggest difference, at least to me, between the Mark 18 and like your M4A1 and a 14.5 inch barrel is, well, the barrel length, as I just kind of alluded to. This gun is shorter, so obviously it's easier to maneuver. But I find, speaking just for, myself as an ordinary, civilian dude who just shoots, at the range on weekends, I don't think there's actually an enormous difference in handling, performance, all that kind of good stuff between this 10.5 Mark 18 clone and the 14.5 M4A1 Block 2 clone that I have. I understand you have, bullet velocity, you have, weight and, all that kind of good stuff. But practically speaking, when I'm at the range or, that kind of stuff, I don't notice a huge difference. And that's not a bad thing. It's just maybe to say I have enough practice to be familiar with both, or there's just not too much of a difference anyway. But it's a good thing if you do need to transition from like a longer gun to a shorter, because the learning curve is very steep and you don't have to be as acclimated, or you don't need as much trigger time to become proficient with a shorter gun. Now I'll also touch on kind of accessibility as well. I think, speaking just for myself, when I very first started to get into guns and AR-15s, the whole like 16-inch legality thing, was a pretty straightforward thing to get used to, regardless of your opinions on it. I just knew the barrel had to be 16 inches or longer, and then I can have the most straightforward purchasing process. Now, if you were looking for a shorter gun like this that appeals to you, there are some more intricacies there. AR-15 pistols are also there, which require slightly more work to understand, but it's really not that bad. And then if you want to go through the rabbit hole of short-barreled rifles, which are literally just shorter rifles with a buttstock versus a pistol brace, then you can look into that. NFA, E-Forms, Form 1 to assemble, Form 4 to actually purchase, and all that kind of good stuff. So that was a bit of a rant or a bit of a ramble there, but just, keep in mind from an accessibility point, they're not all built the same. So lastly, future plans for these. So I kind of, have been saying that I'm moving over to the Mark 18 a little bit or featuring it more. And so, what happens to the M4? What happens to my other guns? So Mark 18, of course, I want to keep it in this configuration. I like it a lot. I like having a gun that, is perfectly set up for 100 or 100 yards or in, which is what this is. The M4, though, will not gather dust in the safe. I'm not going to do this for a while, but ultimately what I would like to do is I actually want to stick an MPVO on it. It's a skill that I've wanted to get into more. I know I've done videos and stuff with the ACOG, which I like a lot and will keep using, but I want to try the MPVO kind of stuff out. I just need to find the right optic and, brace myself to spend the money for it. But that would be pretty cool. The M16A4, though, will still have either the iron sights or still have the ACOG on that. That won't go away. That'll still be there because I know you guys love that. But yeah, just some future plans. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Feel free to leave any questions, comments, or any kind of that good stuff, and I will catch you guys in the next one.